All right, greetings and salutations, my friends. Welcome to a standalone recording of a talk that I gave at the 6th Gen Development Conference at the end of January 2025. It's going to be on a topic that is close to my heart, and it's called Staff Plus Engineering, Leadership Beyond the Management Track. And I'm Petr Zemek. I'm a Staff Plus Engineer at Gen in the CTO organization, and I would like to show you what this is all about. But before we begin, I have some disclaimers. So first of all, everything that I say is either my opinion or I have read something on the internet or in books and so on. And when it comes to this topic, the opinions of people really are variable. So take this in mind. Also, in terms of career letters, job descriptions, job titles, this is highly company specific and not much is standardized across the entire industry. And many of the points that I'm going to make might sound rather theoretical, just because they might be. So I'm not going to be focusing on day-to-day responsibilities of Staff Plus engineers. I will just give you a general gist or an overview. And finally, this talk is rather generic. It's not specific to the company I work at. So that's just that. And the motivation behind the talk is that I would like to let people know that it's great to be thinking about your career. You should do that. If you are unsure, please talk to your manager or to your fellow folks. And if I manage to convince one person who watches this talk to think about their career and maybe have a career conversation with their manager, then I think I have succeeded. All right, let's start with something that I call a starter pack. So here is an example career ladder. So maybe after you finish university or a boot camp, you can start working as a junior engineer. Then as you work through the tasks and you learn more, gain more experience, you can become a mid-level engineer. And then in time, becoming senior, maybe senior engineer 1 or maybe senior engineer 2. Again, these are just some arbitrary job titles that I have selected. So do not pay that much attention to that. But sometimes, or when you gain enough experience, you will become senior enough. And that's like the standard individual contributor or IC track for short. Now you might be thinking, okay, what next? You could stay at this position if the company allows you. And I would say that most companies allow that, which is good because we really need strong senior engineers. But the other thing that you might consider, or maybe the company might force you, is to go into people management, because this is something that still some companies provide only the people management track, meaning that if you want to move forward in your career, you need to become an engineering manager and take on people leadership responsibilities, meaning that you get a team of, I don't know, 4 to 10 people, and you basically have to manage this team. And then you can move to be a senior engineering manager who manages other managers, and so on, up to, let's say, VP of engineering or maybe a CTO. But not everybody enjoys people leadership, and companies saw that, okay, we are losing precious talent. What should we do? And basically, the other track, which is called a technical leadership track or staff plus engineering track, got introduced, which is a parallel track to the people management one, where we have job titles like staff engineer, principal engineer, distinguished engineer. And people can move into leadership, but it's no longer people leadership, it's technical leadership. So they can continue on the individual contribution track, meaning that they do not have direct reports, and go the way of technical excellence. A few things that I would like to mention. The term staff plus engineering encompasses all those titles like staff engineer, principal engineer, and this is the reason why there is that plus there. And also, please note that the job titles that you have at your company or at other companies can differ. So for example, some companies might have, instead of senior 2, they might have principal engineer, and instead of principal engineer, they might have something else. So you cannot really compare two companies just based on their job titles. You need to know like what is the career ladder as a whole, because it's chaos, believe me, when it comes to job titles. Okay, so now you have two options or three options: stay as a senior engineer, move to people management, or move to technical leadership. Just to manage expectations, as I said, like the job titles and also responsibilities vary from company to company. So after watching my talk, when you see that, hey, at my company, this is completely different, like, yeah, that's okay, and that's expected. Also, there might be differences, or there are differences between startups and like mega corporations having thousands of engineers. So for example, if you are at a startup and you are like the most senior engineer, you might be the CTO at that startup, but this definitely wouldn't be the case at a large corporation. So please take that in mind. Also, what I need to like warn you about is that when you move to either technical leadership or management, it's really a different role that you are going to have than just a promotion. Promotion can be like moving from a mid-level engineer to a senior engineer, but after you move to management or after you move to technical leadership, it's really a different job. So expect that. In terms of promotion, there have to be three things. One of them is a business need. So for example, let's say that we have a senior engineer and they want to become a staff engineer. So there has to be a business need, like for staff engineer, maybe in that team or maybe in other team. There also needs to be an opportunity, for example, a free spot or like a free headcount that you can like utilize. And also there has to be a budget, right? Because staff engineers like generally make more than senior engineers, although it might not be the case everywhere. But you also need a budget like to do this. So it's not just simple as thinking, hey, I want to become a staff engineer. Just do it. That's not how it works. And also, you might be thinking that everyone might sometimes become a distinguished engineer, or we strive to make all people distinguished engineers. This is definitely not the case. So to manage your expectations here, I have prepared an artificial example of position distribution. So you can see that maybe in an organization like the city organization, there might only be one distinguished engineer. Then maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 senior principal engineers, a few more principal engineers, and so on. So I guess the peak is around senior 1, then it goes down like senior 2, staff, senior staff, and so on. So just take this into consideration, and like the goal here is not to get all the way to distinguished engineer, because then you are going to do vastly different job than senior engineer or even staff or senior staff. So we will see what are the differences between these two positions shortly. All right, so now that we've seen the career ladder, let's see what Staff Plus engineers actually do. So if I had to describe them in a single sentence, I would say that these are technical role models leading the design and execution of large or complex systems. Although this might cover just a subset of Staff Plus engineers, yeah, it's a general description. So a role model means that you really lead by example. So for example, if a junior engineer does something bad, like nothing that much happens, but when a Staff Plus engineer does something bad, people really look up to those engineers and see them as role models. So this might like break your culture at this point. And yeah, leading the design and execution of large complex projects. This can be something that they do. Also, they are like very autonomous. They can work without any supervision at all. And they also generally select the problems to work on by themselves. So when you move to Staff Plus engineering, you're not going to just do a Jira task after Jira task. You really need to figure out what to focus on. You will often be working outside of Jira tasks, and you really need to select something that is most impactful when choosing the problems to work on. Staff Plus engineers are also problem finders, so no longer just problem solvers, meaning that they really need to focus on like what are the business priorities, what are the problems that the business might be like solving or might solve in the future. And you should advise managers, product, like being people managers, product managers, like what should be done, what to focus on. Also, they have to think in terms of a big picture, maybe not just focusing on a single team, and maybe rather focus on like all teams in a department or an organization, how something would impact them. They also need to be strategical when thinking about like what they do, what to focus on, and also think long term, like not just for 1 month or two, but maybe 6 months, a year, or even more. So how what they do will have an impact in that time. Also, in cases when there are no dedicated project managers, usually staff plus engineers take on project management responsibilities and like leading the execution of the projects, meaning that they ensure that the project is moving on, people are unblocked, escalating whenever something is not happening, and just really ensure that the projects are going on and the trains are running on time, so to speak. They should also focus on leveling the people around them, meaning, for example, mentorship or sponsorship or giving talks on various topics, for example, design or project execution and so on, to improve the people around them and in the organization or company. Also, they focus very much on soft skills, I would say. It's not just hard skills, but also soft skills in terms of communication in the organization with various teams, coordinating the effort, various people or teams, and like collaborating with many like different cross-functional teams, maybe even across departments in the organization. They should also be the advocates for people, especially in technical matters, meaning that they should be aiming to reduce technical debt, like ensuring that this is prioritized, or advocating for people in terms of the technologies that the company is going to use, or in terms of their productivity and so on. Basically anything that's related to the technical stuff that they do. I have already mentioned this, but one of the tasks of staff plus engineer is to remove roadblocks, for example, like imposed by other departments or other teams, or when you see that someone is blocked, maybe waiting for some Jira task to be able to continue their work, you should step in, try to find out who's responsible, and try to like either talk to that person to see when this is going to happen, or like help with that or escalate it, whatever it gets to unblock those people so that they are no longer blocked. And this includes, by the way, even like preemptive or like looking into the future and seeing that, okay, if I don't do something now, people are going to be blocked in 2 weeks. So we really should do this like right now so that they don't become blocked in that future. Also, some Stuff Plus engineers might be called when there is some very complicated, gnarly issue happening that may even like span through multiple systems throughout the company, and like dig in, find the root cause, find some solutions, and maybe hand those solutions to the engineering teams that are responsible for those systems to fix that issue. So it can be, for example, a scalability issue or reliability issue, and so on. Also, this is something that you would expect. Like staff plus engineers should be focusing on designing systems, writing technical specifications, and also reviewing various technical proposals, like maybe network design or how to approach messaging at your company, like when to use RabbitMQ, when to use Kafka, guidelines, creating guidelines, standardize things, and so on. They also be setting technical direction either for their team or the organization as a whole. So, for example, like they should be the one like maybe challenging some decisions from management, or figuring out what would be the best way to go. So for example, in terms of APIs, like, hey, should we go gRPC? Should we go REST? Should we go GraphQL? Like, what should we do? What are the pros and cons? And ensure that everything will work as expected for the specific use case. And also, there is much more. This is just a few points that I covered, which I think are highly important. And also, please note that senior engineers might do all of those that are listed here. But in terms of staff plus engineers, this is something that is usually in their job description, like directly. All right. So now, whenever I discuss this with someone, this question comes in. Okay, so I moved to staff plus engineering, but I will still be coding, right? And the question to that is, well, yes, but it's kind of complicated. And I think it's greatly illustrated by this screenshot from Tanya Riley's talk on glue work, that usually when you are at this position or at this level, the most impact you can have is no longer from the code you write. It's from the other activities that you provide. So maybe to manage expectations, it really differs, like from company to company, but generally I would say that you will code, although you will code definitely less than a senior engineer, but I would say more than an engineering manager. So the goal at this level is to be like really impactful, and code is just one way of being impactful. And you no longer might be like the best developer or like the best coder in your team, but it's okay because your contributions are from something else. All right, now there is the word archetype, which if you are unfamiliar with, you can read that quote from Wikipedia and those examples. And in terms of staff plus engineering, we also have those archetypes. And some people may belong to just one archetype or several or none of them. Your company can have their own archetypes. So just maybe let me cover a few of those so you understand what I'm talking about. I will describe the standard 4, which is something that you will read a lot in the available literature. So first of all, there's the tech lead or technical leader. I would say that this is arguably the most common of those archetypes. And basically the tech lead guides the approach and execution of either a team or multiple teams. So the person works with the team or teams to deliver the project, to make sure that they are not blocked, to set the technical vision and strategy for the team or teams or projects, and so on. The other archetype is called architect. Even though the architect job title is slowly fading away, but the architect role is still alive and kicking. And the architect role is basically responsible for the direction, quality, and approach within a critical area for the business. So for example, in terms of a security company, there might be an architect for threat protection. Or if you are like really heavily utilizing cloud resources, there may be an architect for cloud infrastructure. Or if you are providing APIs a lot, then there may be an architect for API design or AI architect, and so on. The third archetype, it's called solver. And this is the person that really digs deep into arbitrarily complex problems and finds an appropriate way forward for the other teams. So for example, in an antivirus company, if there is an issue or if there are frequent issues with releasing new virus definitions or virus definition updates, the person might really step in and see like, okay, these 3 are the main causes behind those issues. If we improve this system, and do something differently, then we will dramatically reduce the failure rate and improve reliability of that. And then we have the right hand, which is arguably the less frequent one. And it's usually available or welcome in corporations that have like a lot of engineers, maybe thousands of engineers. And basically, the right hand is a person that extends people managers or executives' attention, borrowing their scope and authority, and help them operate very complex organizations. Yeah, by removing, for example, important problems for that executive from that executive's plate. Then, of course, your company can have their own archetypes. For example, there can be the disruptor archetype, which is basically a rebel against the status quo and tries to drive transformative change. For example, maybe in terms of what the company is focused on. Or you might have a so-called hyper specialist, which some people call like the true IC, true individual contributor. And hyper specialists have very narrow focus in a business critical area, and they are master in that area and even have industry-wide recognition. So for example, in terms of a security company, this may be a hyper specialist on the AV engine, or maybe in terms of a specific area in AI research. All right. So now you might be thinking, all right, we have that staff, senior staff, principal, and so on, up to distinguished engineer. What are the differences between them? So usually the higher up you go, you will have broader scope and also the area of impact. So maybe if you are a distinguished engineer, your impact may be throughout the entire company or your expected impact. But when you are a staff engineer, your impact might be limited to your team or maybe the surrounding teams and similar. Also, the higher up you go, you have more power generally to influence things because you are part of higher meetings, maybe even like executive meetings. And so, yeah. Also, I think that this goes without saying, but let me say it. The more responsibility you have, the higher up you go, because when you are like very senior, people are looking up to you. You're their role model. You are usually responsible for like many things, or maybe a really business critical area. So there is like less margin of error. Also, the more senior you are, the more strategically you have to think. So, for example, if you are really a distinguished engineer for your company, you really have to think like years ahead because your company is counting on you from the technical perspective. Also, like usually, the higher up you go, the higher your compensation package is, which is kind of expected. And this also might be a reason why some people like decide to climb up the ladder. Also, this might be kind of unexpected for someone, so let me stress it. The higher up you go, the more you will deal with people. And the more I would say you will see that a lot of people, or I'm sorry, a lot of problems are really people problems, not really technical problems. So please, like, bear this in mind. Also, the higher up you go, the more meetings you will have. So just that you are not an engineering manager doesn't mean that you will not have like the same number of meetings as they do. So please expect when you move to this level, you will be like brought into many meetings where people will rely on you from the technical perspective, like to your expertise and so on. And also for some people, sadly, like the higher up you go, the less coding you will do. So maybe as a staff engineer, you might do fairly a lot of coding still, but when you are moving like higher up the ladder, the less coding you will do, because this is no longer like the best way you can have impact at your company. And also, as we saw on that artificial position distribution, the higher up you go, the fewer people on that position are. And also, like the more abstract the job descriptions are, because at very high level, people are expected like to figure out what they should do on their own. So you will not be told by management, you will need to figure it out. All right, so now that we have covered that, let's see some reasons why you might want to become a Staff Plus engineer. So the first one, maybe that you like leading people, you like leadership, but like being a people manager is really not your jam. For example, you don't want to have frequent like discussions with people on your teams on how like satisfied are they, have one-on-ones, do performance reviews, approve vacations, and so on. But you really like leading, for example, technical projects and people that work on those projects. Also, you might want to be able to build something more than you would be able just as a single person. So now you might have a team to build that, so you can build bigger projects. Also, you might want to have a more strategic role. Some people like to have more power or more responsibility. So that's also one of the possible reasons. You might also be in something which is called the room, which refers to meetings where all the decisions are made. So when you become a Staff Plus engineer, you will be able to get into more rooms than previously and have an impact on the company's decisions, or have a way to say something and sway the decisions. Also, Staff Plus engineers generally need to use their soft skills as well as hard skills. So if you enjoy communicating and collaborating and like making people better, then this might be your jam. Also, at this level, as I said, a lot of problems or a lot of tasks that you choose to do are based on like your decisions. So people will not directly tell you often that, hey, this is like really what should you be doing. It is up to you to figure it out. So you have more leeway and more freedom in this sense. Also, one thing worth mentioning is that at this level, you are in some kind of a supportive role. So it is expected, or you should expect, to be interrupted by people, interrupted by managers, and also having a lot of meetings, as I described. And yeah, here I mentioned the supportive role, which is something that you are going to be in when you become a Staff Plus engineer. Also, as I said, some people do it for the money, because the higher up you go, the more money, or the bigger the compensation package is. And also some people enjoy having a fancy job title, like whatever floats your boat, right? And yeah, some people do it to have a sense of progression, like on the career path, to see that they are not stuck. And also being a staff engineer or Staff Plus engineer allows you to do some coding, maybe not like on the production systems, but maybe creating some POCs or fixing some non-critical bugs, and so on. All right, so now that we covered the reasons when someone might want to become a Staff Plus engineer, let's cover the opposite. So first of all, from the senior engineer perspective, like first of all, if you want to be deep in the code, like all the time, then the best thing to do is just stay being a senior engineer, because I think that that's the last position that you will be able to like be deep in the code like most of the time. Or if you really enjoy what you do, right, and you can't imagine doing something else, maybe if you want a fast feedback loop, or maybe if you want to have clear definitions of done, or like for what you do, or if you have enough responsibility, if you are fine with the level of responsibility that you have, or you want to have clear cut job description, like stay senior engineer, it's fine. We need senior engineers. And also, you might have no interest to move either into leadership or people management. Like in that case, like just don't. Okay, now from the engineering manager perspective, when you might want to keep being an engineering manager, Like some of the reasons that I'm going to mention are like you enjoy the people side of things, like the people side of engineering, and maybe even more than the technical side. So maybe instead of working on scalability issues of a system, you might work with performance issues of a certain person to help them like grow, to help them overcome those performance issues and so on. And also, you might want to keep being an engineering manager or become an engineering manager if you enjoy working, I would say, through people, like through your team, instead of being an individual contributor. And also in terms of coding, if you don't really enjoy coding anymore, or you are fine with like only a little coding, maybe sporadically, then yeah, this might be a great role for you. Now, this was all like very maybe theoretical, very general, but what about you, right? Like, what is the proper or best career path for you? It's difficult to answer. I would suggest to ask yourself these two questions, which come from Tanya Riley. The first of them is, what type of work energizes you? Like, what if you do something, you have more energy than before doing something, that this is something that like brings you energy, and this is great. And the other question is what you want to get better at. It's not what you are good at right now, but if you are going to do something for quite some times, even years, you will definitely become better at this. So the question is, what is that you want to get better at? And just focus on that. If you want to know more information, I have written 2 articles on this topic and gave a talk on software engineering career ladders, which is available on YouTube. So you can check it out. I will also provide more references in the end, or more things to read or watch. All right. When it comes to like support or training at companies for technical leaders, basically, Tanya Riley asked this question on a Slack, and the answer that like she received was this: like, what kind of support does your company provide to staff plus engineers? And like the answer is bittersweet, which we can see. I would say that this is generally true, that there are fewer training options for staff plus engineers than for people managers. And also the expectations for staff plus engineers are really not that clear as expectations from people managers. But I would say that the situation is improving, and people are talking more about the technical leadership track. So let's see how where it is like several years from now. All right, now we are reaching almost the end of the talk, so we have some miscellaneous notes. So first of all, I would like to shed some light on the etymology of the words staff and principal. So let's first figure out the word staff. It comes from the military, where the distinction is drawn like between line officers, which like command combat units, and then staff officers, which are in the control center and handle the administrative work, planning, strategy, and so on. And also, like especially in the US, the word staff refers to someone who is like more senior than without the word, like without the prefix. So as an example, a staff sergeant in the US Army is above a sergeant, right? So just don't dwell on it too much. It's just a prefix to describe a person who is like, let's say, more than senior engineer in that regard. And as for the word principal, like the meaning is first in the order of importance, right? Or it can mean like most important, primary, and also it's just a word to describe that maybe someone is more senior than a staff or senior staff engineer. And by the way, please do not confuse this word with principle, which is a rule or a law or a guideline. So these are 2 different words. and they are spelled differently. Also, please, what to keep in mind is that when you move to leadership, be it people leadership or technical leadership, it's really a different job than just a promotion. A promotion is when you are promoted from maybe a mid-level engineer to a senior engineer, from senior 1 to senior 2 in our artificial career ladder. But yeah, moving into leadership, it's really, you will do vastly different things that you were doing previously. For example, when you are a senior engineer and you become a staff engineer, I'm not saying that you will not do anything that a senior engineer does. You will do fairly a lot of things that a senior engineer might do, but you will need to focus on the things that make you most impactful. And as you go forward, or up on the career ladder, you will do fewer and fewer things that senior engineers do. Also, what I suggest is that if you really love coding, just stay as a senior engineer and fight for higher salary, stock options, whatever your compensation package is, and don't focus that much on a better title, because then you might be sad that you are no longer doing the things that you enjoy or want to get better at. One thing that I would like to mention, I would say that, or I would hope that this is clear, but sometimes it's really not. Like, people should generally not be forced to move into leadership or management. And I think it's great if people can try to do that, but then see that this is not for them, then and they can move back. I think that's great. And one thing that I keep saying is that technical leadership and people management, these are the true tracks on that career ladder, are really two sides of the same coin, where each side is focused on something else. Like, technical leadership is focused more on the technical side of things. People management is more focused on funnily people management. But the goal of both the two sides of this coin is the same, to help make people better, help people grow, help the company make whatever the company is making, and so on. Also, there is one thing that is usually called an engineer-manager pendulum. And this means that some people are switching tracks during their career. So for some time, they might be a senior engineering manager. Then they decide to switch back to the technical leadership track and become a senior staff engineer, and then maybe move back to engineering management. And this is perfectly fine, provided that, for example, the company provides you this option, or you might need to switch the companies. But some people do that, and it's just fine. Another thing worth mentioning is that you might be reporting on different levels in the organization hierarchy, and both reporting low or reporting high have different pros and cons. So for example, if you are reporting low, you are really more focused on what the team does. You are really in the trenches where things are happening, but you might lack the bigger picture, or you might not see what is happening outside of your team. But when you are reporting high, of course, you have more, or you might have more responsibility, you might have more overview, but you are no longer, as I said, in the trenches with the other developers. So you might feel isolated. So it really depends on what your preferences are, what the company's preferences are, and how things are done. And one thing that people usually don't understand, I think, is that if you are technically correct, that's just the beginning. The hardest part is to make other people or to convince other people that you are technically correct, and this is the worth thing to do. Because even though you might be technically correct, you might be unable to convince other people, other teams, managers, other leaders, or there might be other priorities. So yeah, just don't believe that if you are technically correct, that that everything will go your way. This is not how it is. And if you want to learn more about my career, I wrote a blog post around a year ago, so feel free to read it to see how my career progressed. All right, in terms of recommended reading, I have two books. The first of them is by Will Larson. It's called Staff Engineer, published in 2021. And the other book that I can recommend is Tanya Riley's Staff Engineer's Path, published a year later. I think that both of these books are excellent. And if you want to learn more about staff plus engineering, I suggest having both of those books. All right, here's just a summary and Q&A that I showed like at the real life talk. As for the questions, I received like two major questions, I would say. The first one was that, okay, how did you end up in a staff plus engineering role? And the question is, I started as anyone else, like being an engineer and then senior engineer. And then I guess I have shown leadership aspirations. And I think that this is something that is kind of in me. I cannot like explain this. But at that time, the only option was to move me into a people management role. So I moved that there. I managed a team of engineers. But after a year, I saw like that this is not my idea of a good time, and this wasn't the right approach for me. And fortunately, like we were able to put me like later on an IC track on that Staff Plus engineering track, and I've been on that track from now on. And this is really a better option for me. And I really like the technical leadership track more than the people management track. But hey, that's just me. And the second question was that, okay, but what if I talk to my manager and he is or she is unwilling to help me or doesn't understand like what I'm asking, or there might be like no options, or they might be unwilling to help you? Then my answer would be, try to talk to your fellow peers that maybe you see on this level, or try to go to some meetups, or try to talk to people like who are having talks such as this one at your company, because then this is something that they usually enjoy. So just talk to them, or like look online. There's a leadership Slack that you can join, and there are several channels dedicated to Staff Plus engineering. So yeah, I think the options are there, even if your manager is not supportive. But yeah, my suggestion would be definitely try talking to your manager first. Alrighty, we have reached the end. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you like the presentation. And please, if you don't remember anything else, remember that there is an option like at some companies to do Staff Plus engineering. And think about your career, think about what you would enjoy doing and what would energize you, and focus on that. All right, see you next time.